Okay, to pile on more on many, we are continuing with the gruesome tales coming out of Indiana and Ohio. Yes, we are now bringing stories from Ohio. And these two stories, boys and girls, are horrible. But know this, we have seen and heard some good things about Indiana and Ohio, and we like these states from what we saw. But we tend to bring what the people want, and like us, they like how should I say this? The stories that sets our emotions to the max. I hope you like these stories. Wait, how can you like these stories? They're horrible stories, mostly of human monsters and the torture they inflict on the innocent. What I should say is that I hope you like our efforts to bring these stories to you. Yes, that's better. We put our hearts into what we do, scouring for these stories to share with you in the best way we know how. It's a labor of love, but it's also hard work. We must travel around these states and see new places, meet new people, and eat tasty local cuisine in our comfy, quaint shuttle bus, which we call Snow. We must also find amazing, entertaining, and gut-wrenching stories. Then we have to stay at these beautiful campgrounds to enjoy them. Like I said, it's hard work. Anyway, your support is not just important, it's everything to us. A simple like takes less than a second, and a subscribe ensures that you won't miss any of our stories. We've shared many here, and there are many more to come. So click the all button so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. But on a serious note, these two upcoming stories are shocking. So I hope you're sitting down because I'm about to tell you first the story of Herbert Baumeister, aka the I-70 Strangler, not to be confused with the I-70 Killer, which was a few videos ago. Welcome to Some Stories of Mine, where we bring you the series This Happened Here. I am LT Bartek, your guide through these shocking stories. It was 1994, just another beautiful day in Hamilton County, Indiana. The young son of Herbert Baumeister, having the energy of a 15-year-old boy, had to get out of his parents' house, which they had owned since May 1988. The house was located just west of US 31 on 156th Street in Westfield, and it was large and beautiful. The house was built in 1978 and was sold in 2009 for $987,500. The 18-plus acre 4-bedroom, 10-bathroom, 11,572 square foot property was listed as over 18 acres of wooded private rolling grounds with a pond. The house has an indoor pool and a wet bar. There is also 5-car detached garage with a second floor and outside deck, 2 horse stables, a tack room, and an exercise ring for the horses. His father's stores, the Save-A-Lot, were doing well at the time, and he had used his vast profits to buy this house for them. He walked to the back of the house. The day was golden and the sun bathed the trees and yard that surrounded him. He stepped off the deck and continued to walk towards the woods, picking up a twig to move the cobwebs away from his face as he moved further beyond the tree line. It had rained a lot lately, and he was happy to be outside. He looked around at the trees, watching his step as he made his way through them. The ground was soft, and he occasionally looked down to avoid the puddles. He was about to look up after stepping over a rather large pool of water when he saw a pale object to his right. It looked out of place. Moving away some of the bushes, he moved towards it and bent to push the mud from the surface. He was so shocked by what he saw that he fell back on his butt, still with his eyes trained on the object in front of him. Gathering his courage, he reached for it. Picking up the stick that had fallen from his hand, he cleared the mud surrounding it, releasing it, and picked up a complete human skull. Holding it in one hand, he ran to the house, screaming for his mom all the way there. Frightened, she came to the door and met him outside. With trembling hands, he placed the skull on one of the patio tables, and they both looked at it and each other, unable to speak. Finally, all the words came tumbling out at once. He told his mother where he had found it, and she went inside and called his father, Herbert Baumeister, who was born in Indianapolis in 1947. On the phone, Herb sounded shocked and unable to formulate a coherent sentence, but he managed to say, "I'll be home shortly." He needed to create a plausible story and took that opportunity as he made his way home. When he got to the house, he went directly to the backyard where the human skull still sat on the patio table. He picked it up and forced a nervous laugh through his lips. "Oh, this is my dad's," he said, then continued. "You know he's an anesthesiologist. This is part of his dissecting skeletons. He had given it to me. I had it in the garage, but I got tired of looking at it and buried it in the backyard." Julie Baumeister, his wife, and his son were relieved and satisfied with his story. They believed him, and life continued. But something wasn't sitting right with Julie. He was a strange fellow when she met Herbert Richard Baumeister. But he wooed her enough that she married him in November 1971. 6 months after their marriage, she became worried about him and told his father that he was hurting and needed help. He had committed him to a psychiatric hospital for 2 months, but that was the full extent of Herbert's treatment. Throughout their 25-year marriage, they were hardly intimate. In fact, she had only had sexual relations with him 6 times in those 25 years, and 3 of those times had produced 3 children. She had never even seen her husband naked, but he provided for her and the children, and she occupied herself with taking care of them, the home, and helping with the Save-A-Lot stores. For the last few years, the police have been investigating the disappearance of a few men and strangulation and murder of 11 young boys, and Julie was appalled by it, especially having a son the same age as the boys found in the ditches, in the rivers, and left in bushes by the side of the road. Then her world was set ablaze when the police turned up at her door, wanting to search her home and claiming that her husband was a suspect in these killings because he was seen in the presence of one of the missing persons. Her mind wandered back to the skull her son had found in the backyard, and that horrible feeling that something was not right with her husband intensified. Scared for herself and her children, she filed for a divorce. A few days later, after being shown testimonies as evidence that her soon-to-be ex-husband might be the one behind these 11 deaths of children and adults, she had no choice but to comply with a search. She hoped and prayed that it turned out to be not true for her and her children's sake, but as a mother she would want the police to find the killer behind their deaths. That was the reason she allowed it. So when Herb told her he wanted to go on vacation without the kids, she arranged with the police to search her property. Her world blew up like the aftermath of the atomic bomb when they found in her backyard human remains belonging to 11 men, 8 of whom were later identified. Along with the remains were shotgun shells, charred remains, and handcuffs. Found and identified were John Lee Bayer, 20, went missing on May 28, 1993 in Indianapolis. Jeffrey Allen Jones, 31, went missing on July 6, 1993 in Indianapolis. Richard Douglas Hamilton Jr., 20, went missing on July 31st, 1993 in Indianapolis. Alan Lee Livingston, 27, went missing on August 6, 1993 in Indianapolis. His remains were recovered in the initial search of the farm in 1996, but remain unidentified until October 2023. Stephen Sperlin Hale, 28, went missing on April 1st, 1994 in Indianapolis. Alan Wayne Broussard, 28, went missing on June 6, 1994 in Indianapolis. Roger Allen Goodlett, 33, went missing on July 22, 1994. Last seen after he left his mother's residence where he lived. He visited a gay bar on 16th Street in Indianapolis. 2 weeks before his disappearance, Goodlett was sighted in the company of Baumeister in several Indianapolis homosexual establishments. Michael Frederick Mike Kern, 45, was a homosexual man last seen on March 31st, 1995 at a gay bar in downtown Indianapolis. A jacket belonging to Kern was found in Baumeister's residence. Manuel Resendez, 34, was a homosexual Hispanic male and children's counselor from Lafayette, Indiana, who was last seen at a gay bar in downtown Indianapolis on August 6, 1993. In January 2024, Hamilton County coroner announced the identification of remains that were recovered in 1996 from Fox Hollow Farm. Human remains recovered from the property matched a family reference sample that was submitted in early 2023, and this led to the identification in January 2024. Before the detectives could arrest 49-year-old Herbert Baumeister, he had shot himself in the head in Pioneer Provincial Park in Canada on July 3, 1996. He died instantly. This was the day the digging had stopped. Herbert Baumeister would visit gay bars in the area close to his residence. He would find and lure these young men to his home and strangle his victims after bounding them with ropes and handcuffs. This he would do when his wife and children were not at home. By 1999, authorities had linked him to the disappearance of at least 16 men since 1980, including several whose bodies were found dumped in shallow streams in rural central Indiana and western Ohio. More than 10,000 pieces of remains were excavated and stored at the University of Indianapolis. County Coroner Jeff Jellison said the victims were killed and burned, and their bones fragments were crushed and buried. Investigators believe that at least 25 people fell victim to Baumeister. Upon his death, he left a 3-page suicide note apologizing for spoiling the scenery of the Canadian park and for his failing marriage and businesses. His suicide note said nothing about the missing men and the bones found on his farm. In April 1998, 2 years after Baumeister's death, investigators announced they believe Baumeister was responsible for the death of 9 more men and teenage boys whose nude bodies were found in shallow streams, ditches, and remote areas across central Indiana and western Ohio along I-70 between 1980 and 1990, according to the Annapolis Star. Also, according to the Star and other published reports from the time, these victims were Michael S. Petrie, 15, was found in Hamilton County, Indiana ditch on June 16, 1980. Maurice A. Taylor, 22, was found in northeastern Hamilton County, Indiana on July 21, 1982. Michael A. Riley, 22, was found in Hancock County, Indiana ditch on June 5, 1983. James B. Robbins, 21, was found in a remote area in Shelby County, Indiana on October 17, 1987. Thomas R. Claveger, Jr., 19, was found in an abandoned rail bed in Drake County, Ohio on September 12, 1990. Eric A. Roy Tigger, 17, was found in a Preble County, Ohio creek bed on May 9, 1985. Michael A. Glenn, 29, was found in a Preble County, Ohio creek bed on August 17, 1986. Stephen L. Elliott, 26, was found in a Preble County, Ohio creek bed on August 12, 1989. And Clay R. Boatman, 32, was found near a bridge in Preble County, Ohio on August 14, 1990. This was a tragic one indeed, and my heart goes out to all involved. That is why I urge everyone listening to please be careful out there. Up next is the Witch's Tower, aka Frankenstein's Castle. 17-year-old Ronnie Stevens looked over at his girlfriend, 16-year-old Peggy Harmeson. He could see she was a little scared of the heavy rain and lightning disappearing the road and trees around them. He was beginning to feel that fear because he couldn't see through the windshield as the rain pelted it, distorting the images beyond the wiper blades going a mile a minute. As if the thought had just popped into her head, Peggy shouted over the noise of the rain hammering the roof of the car, "Let's go to the Witch's Tower. It's just down the road. We can wait out the thunderstorm there." He knew where it was and turned the car towards Hills and Dale Metro Park, just off Patterson Boulevard in Dayton, Ohio. The tower is believed to have been constructed between 1990 and 1910 after the Civil War, but no one knows for sure. The tower was scary, but Ronnie dared not let Peggy see the fear in him or hear his heart pounding as he navigated his way there. He wondered why she wanted to go there of all the places, but he liked Peggy and would do anything for her. The Witch's Tower, aka Frankenstein's Castle, was built by the National Youth Administration on land owned by J.H. Patterson. He used the land as a recreation place for himself and his NCR employees. This tower was an observation deck for parkgoers, providing Patterson and visitors with beautiful views of the hills surrounding the castle. Ronnie also feared what he might find there. Recently, vandals have gone there to deface the walls and leave garbage throughout the tower. The park had constructed a gate to keep them out, but they had always broken it. He hoped now that the gate was open and there would be no one there to harm them. Despite the lightning and thunder sounding like a symphony of chaos, with deep booming notes of thunder resonating like timpani drums, and sharp cracks of lightning slicing through the air like electrifying cymbal crashes, they parked and cautiously made their way inside the tower. Peggy walked in first and stopped just inside to look around in the fading light of the evening. It was 7:30 p.m. The sky should have been brighter than this, but the cumulonimbus clouds had darkened it considerably. They listened but found that the only sounds they heard were the rumbling sky and the sound of the rain. They walked to the top, looked out at the fading light, then turned around and headed back down. Ronnie walked in front of Peggy as a gentleman would. In front of her, in case she slipped, he would be there to catch her. They were almost at the bottom when he saw the night sky lit up like day, and suddenly he was pushed forward and landed face down at the bottom of the stairs. He couldn't tell how much time had passed, whether it was minutes or hours. He managed to open his eyes and try to get up, but the scorching pain radiated from his chest and head could only allow him to moan in pain, and he fell back to the ground. An hour after the lightning strike, Assistant Scoutmaster Laurel Pearson was walking the trail by the tower. He liked to look at it because it invoked a feeling of awe and terror inside him. He was about to walk past when he heard moaning coming from inside the tower. He stopped and listened. There it was again. At first, he thought it was just kids playing around, but something told him to take a closer look. Halfway inside the tower, he saw a young man lying on the ground. He had burnt marks on his chest and head and was moaning in pain. He tried to talk to him, but the boy could not communicate. He was in too much pain and was obviously in shock. Seeing that, he immediately got in his car, drove to the nearest payphone, and called the police. When the emergency crew arrived, they found Ronnie behaving uncontrollably and acting erratic. They had to handcuff him to keep him from harming himself and those around him. As they walked in to check the rest of the castle, they found Peggy's lifeless body on the 11th step. The coroner theorized that she had died from a lightning strike. He thinks lightning had likely hit the tower, the highest point in the park, and rolled down the wet walls. Peggy and Ronnie, wet from the rain, might have been leaning against the said wall, and Peggy was electrocuted and Ronnie got electrical burns. Ronnie's injuries were less because Peggy had absorbed most of the shock because she was behind, and so it had hit her first. Before the tower was sealed off with brick, people say they would see burnt images of a girl inside the castle staining the walls, and although the park's maintenance crew would paint over it, these images would bleed through again. Peggy Harmeson died, but Ronnie continued, living with the burn marks still on his face and chest. We went there and I walked around the castle. Yes, there is no way to get in, but I think that is a good thing. I am okay with them closing it off because I can't understand why people would go there to deface and litter this magnificent structure. Really, why? So, another sad one coming out of Ohio, and once again, my heart goes out to all who were hurt by this. Well, that's all we have for now. Come back next week for more stories about Ohio. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment, all that good stuff. Love yourself and others, and I will catch up with you on the next one. Love you. Bye.